Hello, welcome to Life Coaching on the Move. I'm your host, Dawn Fiske. Welcome to this podcast and thank you for choosing it. Thank you so much. Today we are talking about how to have awkward conversations, risky conversations, or handle conflict, and why we should handle conflict and how to do it. So that is the subject for today. If you find it helpful, please do share it on your social media or tell people about it. Pass on the word. That is, you are already doing that, I know for sure, because I can watch the stats. But I do truly appreciate it. The way to contact me is dawn@milestone-coaching.co.uk or visit the website www.milestone-coaching.co.uk, where you can see my blog, some workshop dates coming up that you could join on Zoom workshops that I've got running, or downloadable online different programs. Also, of course, don't forget, if you do need any coaching at all on any of the subjects that I cover, and it's a whole host of subjects, we go one at a time. You don't have to sign up for a course of coaching. You can just have one coaching session on one topic and sort it out, handle it, and off you go. You're not tied into something you can't get out of. So always feel free to contact me if there's anything that you would like to sort out and work with me on. Then it'll be great to hear from you. But let's crack straight on to handling conflict and having those potentially awkward conversations. I hope it helps. Today I'm talking about what can be, for some people, quite a dodgy subject, and that is conflict. So it never ceases to amaze me how many friends, relatives and clients say to me, "Oh, I don't like conflict. I'll do anything to avoid conflict." It's got such negative connotations, hasn't it? It means being upset. It might mean what does it mean to you? For some people, it conjures up the thought of raised voices, shouting, anger, disappointment, upset, etc. But it doesn't have to be that way. Conflict doesn't have to be an argument or shouting or aggression. Conflict actually, and I get clients to look at this, can be incredibly positive. It can be a sort of tool for change. What conflict does, or an issue being raised does, is it shows that it's an opportunity or a signal that there needs to be a change for both parties. So if there is a conflict bubbling away, whether you're avoiding it or tackling it, it indicates that something's wrong. It's a bit like anger. A lot of people avoid anger. They see anger as a very negative emotion, and anger management courses, and it's bad to be angry. It's seen as a very negative emotion. And no emotions are good or bad, or right or wrong. All emotions show us that there is something afoot. So anger shows us that there's something wrong. It's a signal that something needs to be solved or sorted. It's the same with conflict. So any kind of conflict that raises its head in a relationship or a family or a workplace indicates and signals to us that there needs to be a change. And it may only be one person that's annoyed about something and everybody else is unaware of it. But if there's one person affected, then it has to have a knock-on effect to everybody else in that team or that family or that relationship. So it is a shared issue for them all, because they are, whether directly or indirectly, affected by that upset. So we need to perhaps at times change how we see or reframe how we see conflict. If we see it as an opportunity, It's a good thing. It's an opportunity for growth. It's an opportunity for development. It's an opportunity for constructive, creative discussions and conversations about how things can change or what needs to be changed, and improvement, then it can be a good thing. If we go in with that mindset, we're going to approach it very, very differently, much more openly, much more positively, and embrace it rather than avoid it. So which one are you? Where are you on the scale of things? Do you avoid it at all costs and bury it and accept things just for the sake of peace and harmony? And then does it affect you, bubbling away, discomfort, resentment? Do you harbour it? Do you resent things? They're not healthy emotions. They're not healthy in a relationship. They're not healthy in a team. You begrudge things. You're silently angry. You go home and moan and bitch at home about it, or you're about your boss or about your team member or that colleague that's constantly late. He was late again today. I had to open up the shop again. What happens if I'm ever late or the bus is late? He just assumes I'm going to be there and open up. So we let it off our chest perhaps at home, and then go in the morning smiley, don't say a word, let it fester, let the negativity breed. And that will come out somehow, even if it's that, you don't work well together, or, there isn't a friendship or consideration, or you won't help them when they need a day off. You won't be flexible with your annual leave or something like that. It is so much better to talk these things through, so much better to reach a solution, or let them know so that they can grow, they can develop, they can improve. Because often it's a blind spot. If we don't know what our faults are, or our weaknesses are, or our areas for development, if we're completely unaware of that and blind to it, we are never going to change it. We can't, because we don't know it's there. And it's only when someone has been kind enough, that always gets some of my clients looking with their eyebrow raised. Kind enough, yeah. If someone is kind enough to sit us down and tell us how that behaviour, that action, that approach is affecting them or the team or the productivity or in the family or whatever, negatively, then once we're aware of it, we have the choice to change, to grow, to improve. And we may well benefit as a result. In fact, I would almost hazard a guess and say with certainty that we will. It's a win-win. Everybody benefits because the team are happier. The department is smooth, it runs more smoothly, the atmosphere improves, etc. So what I want to say first, the first takeaway is, do not avoid conflict because you think it's negative. It doesn't and shouldn't be negative. Handled well, conflict is a positive thing. Handled well, it's an opportunity to improve something that's not working in a relationship, in a family, in a club or a class or whatever, or at work in a team. And if handled well and the issue is tackled and improved, it's a win-win thing. Or if there's disagreement and differences in opinion, it can be the opportunity for some really creative solution raising conversations. Things can evolve, new ideas can emerge, creative solutions can be found by discussing how everybody feels. So therefore, things that had never, ever been considered can genuinely arise from that conversation. And things can be totally shaken up and totally improved as a result of that potentially risky conversation. That's often why we avoid them, because we feel there's a risk to it. There's a risk that someone will get very upset. They'll get very hurt. They'll get very angry. They might leave. They might shout at me. We might end up having a row, my husband and I, or something if I raise this. Is it worth it? No. I'll just tidy up myself. I'll just do it myself. I'll just keep quiet, etc. And so that's a short-term gain because you haven't had a little Barney. But long-term, that behaviour is going to carry on. And your resentment will get deeper and deeper and your anger will get worse and worse. And it will come out in some other way, even if it's passive-aggressive in a different way. So what is the risk? I suppose that's what we need to see. First of all, need to reframe it as being a positive opportunity. A positive conversation for change and improvement. Secondly, we need to look at what is the risk then? Why am I scared? What am I scared of the risk? Is it that they shout or whatever? And that can be addressed by tackling it in particular ways. Now, what made me think of this, actually, I've mentioned this to you before, I think. I was listening to one of my favourite podcasts, which is Dr. Chatterjee. Have I mentioned that to you? Dr. Chatterjee, Chatterjee. He's a GP, medical doctor. He does a weekly podcast on all sorts of subjects. You have got to listen to it. All sorts of health, well-being subjects with expert guests every week. The one I was listening to last week was about how to have quality relationships, and two experts were on there talking about that. Now, where is it? I've lost it now. I will find it in a second. So the podcast is called Feel Better, Live More. Have a listen to it. There are all sorts of past episodes that you can listen to, previous library of episodes. This one is with guests from the authors of a book called Connect, Building Exceptional Relationships with Family, Friends and Colleagues. And I love their little strategy, which they talk about. I'll try and just do it some justice. They talk at length about this, but they call having difficult conversations, they kind of draw on the analogy of tennis. We've got to stay on our side of the net. So what they say is they talk about a concept of being over the net. So we begin by talking about our intention and our behaviour and our stuff in this conversation. If we ever end up saying you do so and so, you make me feel something, you're very thoughtless, or you're so selfish, or whatever, we have gone over the net. That's their stuff. We're trying to play the ball over the net, and we shouldn't do that. We should stay on our side of the net in terms of tennis, and we should say what the issue is in our eyes. You've been late for the past 10 days opening up the shop, and so you're giving the reality of you have been late for 10 days now, and I've had to open up the shop. If you then said, you clearly don't think about my time, and you clearly assume I'll be here on time and take it for granted, you take me for granted, let's say, then you've gone over the net. You've put an interpretation on that. You've assumed you know what they're thinking. You've assumed you know how they see you. You've jumped over the net and you're playing the ball over there. If you stayed there and said you have been late opening up the shop for the last 10 days, that puts a lot of pressure on me, because it makes me know I've got to be on time, and worries me that should my bus be delayed, it concerns me that the shop isn't open for the public. We both should be there before 9, etc., etc. So you're owning your specific example, the reality of the situation, the consequences that it has for you, the impact it has on you as you see it, not as they see it. You can't say you clearly don't care about this business, or you clearly don't care about my time, or your time's clearly more important than mine, or more valuable, or whatever. It's none of those interpretations. We don't know. So they, amongst many other things, and I have summarised that so simply that it sounds it's insignificant. It's not. They explain it really, really well. They give lots of examples, lots of ways of using it. So we need to stay on our side of the net. I quite like that one. If you want to put it another way, we've got to give real evidence for whatever we're saying, specific evidence that you have seen. Don't throw other people in. Just you own what you're saying. So you can't give somebody some feedback and say, the whole department believe, or everybody says. You can't speak for others. It has to be you, your situation, your issue, the evidence that you have, the specific examples that you have, and how it has impacted on you, or how it makes you feel, or what you would like to see as a potential solution. So you've got to own that conversation, really. And if you stick with all of that, and therefore you're using the word you, this, you, and that, when you say you, in fact, I'm sat here pointing my finger. It feels very accusatory. So we try not to do that, not to create an atmosphere of accusations. The way to avoid that is, of course, to ask questions. Were you aware that you have been late for 10 mornings on the trot? You've arrived quite significantly past 10 past 9 for 10 days now, which means the shop has not been open on time, etc., etc. Is there an issue? Is there problems with public transport? Have you got things that you have to do at home en route? Is there anything I need to be aware of? What's happening that's making you late? Is there anything I can do that could help that? So we try to hear their side. We try and understand what's going on for them, ask questions and listen. It may well be that uncovers it and you can deal with that. You can find a solution as a result. It may well be that they were simply unaware, blasé, oblivious, unaware, and not really thinking and not really considering it, not knowing what impact it has on you or the business, and therefore that it's a blind spot and they're not going to solve it without you drawing attention to it, without you passively aggressively, late again, or anything like that. You're dealing with it professionally and maturely, I guess is probably the word. So if we ask questions and if we listen, then that will give them an opportunity to just talk and bring their side to it, which will then in turn reduce the risk of them becoming defensive, becoming angry, etc. We've got to try and work out what their intention is, what their behaviour, their understanding is, and the reasons behind it. And then if it's a work situation and you're giving feedback or you're just pulling them up on certain behaviours or actions, then after that conversation during that conversation you need to create a plan or a solution, steps that they can take in order to improve it, agree an action plan or offer a solution together, come up with one together. And then if it is a work thing, I would suggest it's pretty important to document that conversation, including what steps you've agreed for them to take to try and overcome it, and including a follow-up date that you'll get together and discuss it again. I need to just take it back a bit. If it is a potentially difficult conversation or a conversation with potential risk or potential conflict, then the very fact that there is that potential, I would say do not do it spontaneously. Do it in the right place, at the right time, with some planning. Those conversations where it does get out of hand and it does get emotional are usually because it's knee-jerk, in the wrong place, at the wrong time, wrong atmosphere, wrong approach. If it is potentially risky, then there's a lot at stake. And because there's a lot at stake, I would say it's much wiser for you to prepare, to plan, maybe even rehearse how and what you're going to say. Get your words around it. Non-accusatory words, quite neutral words, factual words, some emotion, but only your emotion and how it makes you feel. Own that. Don't put interpretations on their behaviour. You're thoughtless, you're this, you're that, or whatever. Don't do that. So I would say, if it is a potentially risky conversation, plan it, book it in, have the right setting where other people can't hear, that you're not being overheard by the rest of the team, you're not conscious, you're not trying to keep your voices down, you're not embarrassing them or making it awkward or anything like that. In private, at the right time, when they're not in a hurry, they're not rushing off to catch a bus, you're not being overheard, you've got time on your side, you've got privacy on your side. They may need to know in advance roughly what you want to chat about, so they may want to consider things and bring their ideas to the table. Or you may want to have a brief, an initial conversation about this and then a follow-up conversation once they've had the opportunity to think about it, depending on the subject. If it's in a relationship or a family, again, you may not want to raise this subject just as they're leaving to catch a train for work, or you're trying to bundle kids in the car for the school run. It needs to be the right place at the right time. For couples, it's often a really good thing for couples to go for a walk. Well, anybody actually, if it's a friendship as well, or even with kids, especially sort of teenage kids or something like that, it's to have that conversation when it's not intense, it's not pressurized, sat over the table, eye to eye over the table, all hard and heavy. It's not a heavy environment. I would even recommend one of the best places to have one of these sorts of conversations is in a more relaxed, neutral setting, such as out on a walk. There's something about walking side by side because you're not eyeballing each other, you're not full intense eye contact with lots of silences and in expectation for good answers immediately. You're walking along, you can be looking at other things, the wildlife, nature, etc. You're not having that intense eye contact. There can be companionable silences whilst the other one's considering what you've said or thinking of a solution or whatever. So sometimes side by side on a walk or in a car on a car journey can be less intense and therefore more constructive than sat across the table with each other with expectations. So again, if it's family or friends or a partner, it needs to be planned and in the right environment at the right time. That actually can be really key, getting the timing and the venue correct. Than when it's heated, spontaneous, without thought, that's when it's likely to erupt into a much bigger, more emotional, more destructive conversation. But the same things apply. So the right setting and venue and timing, asking questions to try and understand first and hear them out and listen, give proper evidence, proper set examples, real examples that for you, owned by you, and then talk only your side of the net about what the actions are and how it impacts on you, not accusatory about them. And also see it as an opportunity to improve things and even say those things, so that language about how can we improve this, how can we move forward, how can we change this, and come up with a solution together and see it as an opportunity to grow, even if it's in the family or in the relationship or friendship. So really the key takeaway from today is the cost of avoidance can be quite high. It can just let the rot set in. You can become resentful and angry, etc. And that can go on for years and get bigger and bigger and bigger. By having these conversations, that avoids that. And it work, and it can be costly to avoid having a conversation. It can cost the partnership or the business or their job. In the end, they may just get rid of, in a company, someone may get sacked eventually because of the rot set in a long, long time ago about other things. We don't want that. If things are dealt with now, that person can get better and stronger and more able and more productive and more professional. Same in relationships, same in family. We can gain from it. So Ask yourself, am I avoiding this? And if so, why? What am I frightened of? And the key question is, what is the price of avoiding this? Where is this going to go? And what's the outcome going to be if I don't tackle this? Equally, ask yourself, what could we gain if we tackle this and improve it? And it gets better. And that could be in your relationship or your job and your team, whatever. So think about the costs, think about the gains, think about what will happen if you don't, think about how things could be if you do and what solutions you could find. Then you've got your answer as to whether to do it or not. And then you need to backtrack and work out how, where, when, what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, what the possible solutions could be, how you're going to follow it up. So it's having a strategy. And then it's much, much easier. So I hope that's helped today. If you want to discuss it further or work on it further, then please do feel free to contact me through the website, www.milestone-coaching.co.uk, and you can drop me an email via the website. Look at workshop dates coming up, or download online downloadable programs, or just follow the blog. So that's all there and all available. If you have enjoyed this, please do share it on your social media. And by the way, it's also available on YouTube. So you can listen, or a friend of yours can listen via YouTube. Just put in on YouTube search, Life Coaching on the Move by Dawn Fiske, and it will come up. There aren't visuals on it. You just listen on YouTube. So that might be an easier way for a friend or relative who doesn't know how to download podcasts yet, because a lot of people still don't, but they do know how to use YouTube. Most people do. So it's there if you want to spread the word or put it on your social media. That will be really, really kind of you. Thank you so much. And in the meantime, I'll talk to you on next week's episode of Life Coaching on the Move.